Well, we'll go ahead and get started. People coming in now, you can catch up because anybody that's coming in now will recognize the guest here. So I'll do a quick intro. I'm Chuck Bubeck. I'm the Executive Director of the Maryland Innovation Center, which is the innovation hub that we've got created in Columbia Gateway. And who we have today is somebody that I think most of you would probably recognize, Ron Gula, who was the co-founder at Tenable, now runs Gula Tech Adventures, and I would say is probably in the regionally one of the most respected people when it comes to security, all those topics, and also somebody who is very well versed in the investment community. And of course, Gula Tech Adventures has done just recently two special rounds. They did both one for a minority group, and I think your current one, Ron, is for nonprofits, which, by the way, I think is a real trendsetter for the area here. That kind of money is being put into the right group.
We're happy to. Maryland's treated us very well, and so is cybersecurity, and we're happy to give back. Happy to be here today, Chuck.
Good. Well, I'm going to turn it right over to you, Ron, and let you run with what we call pitching tech startups, and it's all your show.
Excellent. So it turns out that when you donate money to charity and you make it competitive, or when you try to invest money into cybersecurity startups, you start to see a lot of trends, and you start to see trends that are not good, and it's almost hard to kind of get pitches. Sometime you want to reach through the screen and even in person, be like, why did you say that? What do you do? So anyway, came up with 5 questions that everybody should be asking when they start a company or when they're pitching a product. And I'm going to go ahead and share the screen, and we're just going to walk through this. Now, I've spun these slides a few different ways. I gave a talk a couple of weeks ago focusing on, if you want to start a cybersecurity company, how do you know when you're ready? And it turns out those same 5 questions are there. So whether you're starting a company, pitching a project, asking for investment, they're the same thing. So the questions are real simple. 1, what problem do you solve? And this, it seems like an obvious question to ask, but you would be surprised how often I get a pitch, and 5 or 6 pages into it, there's a description about the cybersecurity market, some problem, number of attacks, and then it goes right to and that's why you should invest in our company. There's absolutely no information about what problem the company solves, and this is really important, because if you can't articulate what problem you solve, no one's going to buy it, no one's going to invest in it, no one's going to do that. And you'd be surprised how often people kind of forget what those basic problems. Now, sometimes when they say they have a problem, it's too high level. I want to increase health for all people in the United States. Well, we all want that, but that's too high level. Same thing. We want to solve cybersecurity. We're going to, increase cybersecurity resilience by 25%. Again, that's too high level. And then sometimes being too specific can be detrimental, describing these problems. So what I'm really looking for is somebody who understands the problem enough to describe the problem in such a way that I can go, aha, as an investor, I want to do that. So the second question is, what problem, or how do you solve that problem? Now, you might have a problem that everybody has, but now you've got a better mousetrap. And trying to communicate how you solve that problem is really important, because there's probably other ways to solve the problem. Maybe the problem has overlapping areas, and trying to kind of put this in a very concise way that somebody can understand, like, why this is an innovation, why this is something that's unique, is really an interesting thing. So for example, we just invested in a company called Trinity Cyber. They're in Maryland, and they solve the problem of intrusion prevention by basically patching vulnerabilities in real time as they come into your network. And that is a unique thing in cybersecurity. Nobody does that. So that's a very interesting thing. Whereas like 99% of the other companies that do intrusion prevention, they all do it the same way. They use patterns, they use threat intelligence, they use anomaly detection, they use artificial intelligence. And when there's 100 of those out there, it's as an investor, it's kind of hard to get excited about people doing it the same way. So that's, what problem do you solve? How do you solve it? And the third thing is, show me some proof. And usually when I get a pitch deck, we're talking about all things that are eventually going to be relevant, but are not relevant upfront. I don't care where the founders went to high school. I don't care that the person on the board was on Fox News last night. I don't care that there's, there's so much distracting information out there. It's tough. Show me some proof that's relevant to the problem you solve and the how you solve it. It could be a patent, maybe it's a proof of concept. Somebody else investing in your company, maybe that's interesting, but that's, just because you convince somebody to invest doesn't mean I should invest because that person invests. What is the proof that you can solve this problem? So is there a customer reference? Do you have open source technology that this is based on? Is there some proof that you can then share with with potential investors and doing and the proof it's really interesting. It can be evidence of attacks. Like I have a lot of people who in cybersecurity, they say, oh, we can detect these kind of 0 days. I'd be like, great, did you detect solar winds? Solar winds just happened, right? Caught the whole industry by surprise. Did you guys detect it? And usually I'll get the well, no. Or so if somebody says they can use AI to predict something or they can do something, predict something, there's 20 years of history that we can just turn on the time machine and say, can you show me how you would have stopped NotPetya? Can you show me how you would have stopped this? So the proof is really, really, really interesting. Now, these last two, though, are really more abstract. If you're in a fundraiser, you're raising money for your company, you're asking for a project to get funded, you're asking for money. You're asking for some, maybe if you're in business, you're going to be asking for resources, but what are you asking to do with the resource? And a lot of times organizations that I'm talking to, they will talk about how they will take the money and do something with it. They're going to hire 5 people. They're going to hire a marketing person. They're going to increase their Google ad spend. They're going to hire more developers. There's something that they're doing with the money. And that's great. That's really, really good. But I'm not investing money to help you grow your business, right? I want to get a return. And a lot of times when people are asking for money, they aren't going down that entire path. I've never, ever gotten a pitch deck that says for every dollar you invest in me today, I'm going to return $10 to you down the road. And that sounds really, really crass, but that's why people do investing. That's why people do seed investing and angel investing and venture investing. And a lot of times, if people are going to ask for money for their company, if they're not aware of that other side of the equation, this conversation can be really crass, because then we can debate, okay, you're going to hire 12 developers. Why not outsource to India? Why not outsource to Russia or China, right? It can get in your in the knickers really quick. But if you really say, look, here's the way we're going to go, here's the way the market's going to go, and the return on your investment is going to be this with these kind of variables, that's really, really sophisticated thinking for fundraising. And it's very, very foreign for somebody to do that as a first-time CEO. But if you see pitches from second and third time CEOs, especially if those CEOs have done some angel investing themselves, or the founders at least, you're going to see some some really interesting things. But then the last one is the most difficult thing that I ask people, is like, how do you know what success looks like? What do you want? And sometimes people want to go on the journey of being an entrepreneur. They want to go on the sort of the ride of being a cybersecurity executive. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that ride never ends. There's always another conference. There's always another interview. There's always another threat that that kind of comes out. And if you start thinking about this in terms of crass financial returns, it gets a little hairy. But the strange thing is like I'll talk to companies and they will gladly tell me how they can reverse engineer 0-day malware, or why their encryption is quantum resistant, or something along those lines. And I'll ask them, well, what are the goals for you and your family of making millions of dollars? How do you know what outcome makes your top 5 lieutenants millionaires? So they can go do this and we can have this ecosystem going. And I'll get the blank stare, and I'll get the blank stare and I'll be like, what do you think's a lot of money? Do you think $100,000 is a lot of money? Is it $1 million? Is it $10 million? What is it? And then if that's your goal, are you going to take advantage of things the government's done, like qualified stock buying, opportunity zones, the great work? I mean, here in Howard County, there's loans you can get. There's resources we have here that can short circuit, that sort of timeline. And it becomes I actually see this a lot with military founders, right? People who are going, they're in the desert, they're fighting the fight, their team is still over on mission, and now they come back to America and they somehow feel like making money and doing good at business is somehow, even though that's what they've been defending, this whole time. And some people kind of feel a little bit ashamed to say, hey, look, I'm just hoping to get a few customers and exit to Cisco, and I want to sell to somebody, and I want to be a repeat entrepreneur. And people think that is somehow less interesting. My point is, if you can't articulate what success looks like, then it's going to come from somebody else. It might be your investors sort of browbeating you and taking better deals that are better financially lucrative. It might be you might have a window. Like right now, there's a really big window going on in cybersecurity where companies are raising money at high values, and there's a lot of acquisitions going on. If you have a 10-year plan, then you can ignore that right now. But if you're right now, you're looking at hooking up with a bigger company so you could learn and get more experience, that would be a really good thing. I think the last thing I'll just kind of show is what I said before. This is more cyber specific, but what is not on these slides, right? The thing that I best heard for these kind of pitches is that if you're in this business, if you're in cybersecurity, 99% of the time, the person you're pitching to on the other side of that table, they're in it too. You should be able to swap sides, and they should be able to pitch the company to you, and you should be able to make a decision why you're doing that. But a lot of times, if you're describing that like SolarWinds was news, or how cool working at the NSA or 8200 in Israel was, those are things that are not going to get it done for a cybersecurity specific thing. Probably the same way that if you were in healthcare and said, "Oh, I'm a PhD from John Hopkins," John Hopkins has many PhDs, and that's really cool. But in the market of innovation, that's not that unique of a thing. So those are the quick things. So once again, the 5 slides: what problem do you solve? How do you solve that problem? What's the proof? What are you going to do with the money? What kind of return are you getting for the investor there? And then what is your vision of success? And I've got longer form versions of these videos at our website, which is gula.tech. And you can see my wife, Cindy Gula, and I talk about all different types of cybersecurity and stuff like that. But Chuck, any comments, any questions you want to get into there?
Well, that's a lot to cover, Ron. Thank you. And you cover stuff so perfectly in a short period. Somebody would have taken 2 hours to do what you just did. So I give you credit there. Any questions, Emily? I don't know how you can handle questions here, but I'd love to open up if anybody had a comment or question.
And the chat and Q&A features are both open if anyone wants to enter.
Great. Hang out for a little bit.
Okay.
But it's all good. Everybody can go out and become a cybersecurity entrepreneur, start a company, get a loan from the state of Maryland, and incorporate an opportunity zone.
So I just put there, if someone is going to make money and then exit, that's okay to say. In other words, to lay it out there that their whole point is a financial exit.
Yeah, and it's the whole point of starting a business, and is to make money, to support your customers. I mean, that's capitalism, and it's okay to kind of basically say, hey, we want to do that. Now the question is how can you describe that in a manner that doesn't seem too greedy? Right. We don't want to be the evil Wall Street kind of, what's the quote, greed is good, that kind of thing. But at the same time, we're not running nonprofits. Right. And a lot of times, donating a lot of money to the nonprofits and investing it. Sometimes we get pitches, and I'll talk and say, look, I really don't know. Is this company a nonprofit, or is this nonprofit a company? Right? We've seen nonprofits that are so well run and have so much cash flow, and they're making such a difference. We don't want to invest in a commercial company that does the same thing, right? But at the same time, if you run a commercial company like a nonprofit and you're losing money every day, guess what? You're going to go out of business. So you have to have some sort of sense of cash flow. And at some point, if you're making money in cybersecurity, you're going to be growing at 200%, 300% a year. Yep. You're going to be able to touch the lives of many, many, many more people than you can just doing a nonprofit. And you're going to end up defending the country. So I really think it's the responsibility of cybersecurity businesses to defend cyber commercial companies. So it's okay to say, yeah, at some point, I do want to get acquired by Cisco. I do want to get acquired by a SPAC. I do want to go, sell my company as part of a larger a larger platform.
Right. Ron,
And
real quick on pitch decks themselves, you hear people say that, you should keep it under, X slides. It should not be, do you have a feel for that for people that may be putting pitch decks together?
can you say that again?
The size of pitch deck, showing up and with 20 slides versus 5. If you get your point across in 5, that's a winner, isn't it?
Yep. It's a winner. And even those 5 slides, if one slide's your title and the last slide is your contact info and maybe your bios, you can get to 10 slides. I like it when I see 10 slides. I like it when I see that. But even in those 10 slides, I still see a lot of stuff. People will combine these 5 things on one.
Right.
One thing. There was a question about, can you specify what Maryland programs might give 25K for cash flow for 60 days? There's a number of different things out there. I mean, there's a lot of money being lent right now for PPP. And you would know better than I would, Chuck, but I mean, Howard County.
Yeah, I would probably contact your local economic development. I don't know what county you're in, since this is obviously across Maryland here, but you may want to reach out to your local economic development, because Ron's right. There are a slew of programs that are out there right now, both state, federal, and county. Well, we're running, Ron. I know you have to. Ron is obviously a busy guy. He's got another 2 minutes here, but Ron, thanks. And everybody got their information on how to contact Ron. If you didn't get it, I'm sure that Emily can make sure it's passed on to everybody. And want to thank you again, Ron, for your time and very, very important topic.
Thanks for the opportunity. I'm really happy to support the Tech Council and the work you guys do. So have a great Thursday.
Great. Thanks, Ron.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.